Hi, Joel.
Bob.
How you doing? How you been?
Great.
Excellent.
How about you?
I'm glad you asked. I actually have a cold. I think I'm getting a cold. I took like zinc and echinacea, but
You
in
feel
any
a little
event,
tickle? A little tickle?
What?
You got a little sniffle? A little tickle?
It's tickle cough. But
Gosh.
I'll tell
should we
you.
not do it? I mean, if you're stricken, I know this is tough for you anyway. Just
dealing with you is a little arduous. Yeah.
You know, we need to clear the air.
Yeah.
Okay. I was on what? A couple of years ago on this show?
I don't think we had quite launched a couple of years ago. You were on a little more than a year. You were on a little more than a year ago.
It has been forever since you invited me onto your program or whatever this thing is. Do you have an audience yet?
Not one I know of, no.
Okay.
Sometimes my kids, I have...
Well, that takes the pressure off of me, because God forbid if someone was actually watching this or listening to it.
I don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't have to bring my A game or the B game.
There's no need for a game, Joel. There's nobody out there, buddy.
Why did people not like me last time? I mean, I thought I was kind of, funny and, sort of clever.
I think part of it was the obviousness of the fact that you think you're funny. Maybe, I don't know. Wait, who says they didn't like you, Joel? Where'd you get that idea? Just because I didn't invite you back for more than a year?
You sent me all these messages that people had sent to you by email saying that they hated me.
Didn't I send you some positive ones? Well, look, if there had been
I'm a writer.
ones,
I don't remember the positive ones. I remember the negative ones, and they were scathing. They were eviscerating. I mean, they flayed me alive. They said I was horrible, and maybe they thought I talked about myself too much. Is that possible? Let's talk about that. No, we should move on. I'm over it. I've recovered.
You barely remember this, right?
It was
Because
just...
they have this for post-traumatic stress disorder. Have you seen this virtual reality therapy? Maybe that's what this will be. We'll do today.
Therapy. It's not a conversation. It's therapy with Dr. Bob.
Yeah. It'll be like getting over your post-traumatic stress from the last time. So I'll try to make it a very positive experience.
It's going to take years to get over it.
I'll give you a lot of affirming feedback that will raise your serotonin levels,
yes.
And then you'll be ready to do one like week after week, if should I ask, which frankly is unlikely. But
I actually can feel it surging, the serotonin.
You feel
it? And the dopamine. It's sort of dopamine on this side and it's serotonin on this side.
I think that's the way it works. Yeah. So
can I'm going to move this thing so I don't have to stare at my stupid-looking face. Hold on a second.
Wait,
gone.
You're moving the screen? You can't see yourself at all?
I was distracting myself.
Okay.
Which actually happens naturally, as you can imagine. Anyway, there's no mirrors in my house. Otherwise, it's too stimulating. So, can I just tell you, I've been out. I mean, the general thing I want to talk about, if we can. Can I cut right to an issue here?
Take charge, buddy.
Decline.
Yeah. I feel your pain.
I wrote a piece recently called Bet on America. It was a big, splashy story in which I basically said I expressed some hope, some optimism that despite the abundant evidence that we are a nation in decline, that we're in some sort of downward spiral, that the American empire, if you will, is crumbling, I expressed the belief that you could probably get pretty good odds right now on where we would be as a country in 50 years. And then I say take America and the points. I kind of like our long-term prospects, not so much because I think, we have no problems. I think our problems are pretty grave at the moment. But I think that the rest of the world has its own issues, too. And that America's, economic domination of the world right now, although it's not likely to continue at the same level, I don't think we're going to become I don't think we're going to turn into a second-rate nation in 50 years. So I wrote this piece.
It was on your blog, your noted blog, Achenblog. I'm holding a printout of it right here.
Achenblog. And people were just horrified. I mean, it was just an outrageous thing for me to say, apparently, that perhaps we could solve our problems. I got a lot of grief, mostly from the left, a little bit from the right. I mean, I kind of poked around, but mostly from the left, where people said that I was whistling past the graveyard. And there was, the piece had some flaws. I mean, I don't want to, pretend it was perfect. I mean,
go ahead. You pretend it was perfect, and I'll show otherwise. How about we do that?
I'm going to feign humility here. It was the piece. It didn't really explain well, what would be the point of being geopolitically dominant if we were a country that was going around invading other countries and making a mess of things? And there was a headline that referred to, it said sort of, forget the doom and gloom, in 50 years we'll still be number one. Now, I actually never in my piece said we'll be number one, because the phrase, number one is a football term.
Who wrote that headline, Joel? Who wrote that headline?
I saw the headline. I can't
We will
say,
have that person hunted down and killed. Who is that?
Well, it's just, look, the problem is
Joel,
the
there's
phrase
someone at
number
the
one is
Washington Post who has to go. Whoever wrote that headline. Name the name.
I don't know who wrote that. The
sorry.
headline writing person. There are people who do things like that.
Okay.
I'm the artist. I just come up with the ideas. Okay?
And you're not complaining about the
anyway, but
headlines.
the point is, so people said that we're number one was a foot, rah, and it was, so that didn't help a little bit. But I generally, and here's the irony I'm working up to here. I generally feel kind of optimistic that over time, with effort and great change of trajectory in certain realms, such as foreign policy, we could solve our problems in 50 years. My guess, this is a guess, America may still be the most dominant country on the planet. But the irony is, of course, is that I personally, in addition to being dead in 50 years, I am in decline.
Yeah, you are in decline. And you know how you know is because of these kinds of patriotic themes you're trotting out. That's a sign that you're on the other side of middle age. You realize that?
It is?
Yeah, totally.
Does that happen to everyone when they hit like 46?
They start writing patriotic, jingoistic stuff. Totally.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah. And the irony
That's why they call you Dr. Bob.
The irony is, what is your doctor?
I thought I had an idea. You're saying it's just a symptom.
It's hormones. And the irony is the doctors, when you reach the other side of middle age, they prescribe a testosterone patch, which I'm sure you have at least one of, and that only makes the problem worse. The jingoistic, macho, neocon thing worse.
Yes. The flag waving, the we're number one, the USA, USA, USA.
Yeah.
But can I tell you, even as you're explaining this, I'm feeling the serotonin going down again.
I'm sorry.
I mean, self-awareness is not always a good idea. I'm actually a big believer in denial and, living in a dream world. But in any case, do you agree with me at all on this? I mean, take a stand there, Bob.
Would you
take the wager on this?
Let me put it this way, no. But first I'd like to say this is actually a good piece. And in reading your pieces, I was reminded you're really good. Not that I had ever doubted that, not that I had forgotten that, but these are good pieces. I read your pieces. And
you read
this is one of them. And it's good. And actually, in the piece, because you cover the waterfront and leave no stone unturned, you actually note the reason, almost as if in anticipation of the blowback you're going to get for this piece, you note that the view you're espousing seems rather like a view that has been associated with neocons lately. That is the source of the blowback you got. Right?
Exactly. If you say America has any hope at all, it sounds like you're saying America is great, which sounds like you're saying we should just start invading people and converting them.
Well, and in fact, I mean, the neocon doctrine explicitly includes an insistence on continued American military preeminence more or less forever, and I think the Bush administration kind of more or less adopted that doctrine several years ago. So there's a reason that most of the blowback came from the left. Now, if you would actually...
But hang on a second. If you read my piece, was it not sufficiently nuanced in saying that I was not saying that America, should invade other countries? I wasn't saying that we're like the greatest country that's ever lived. I was simply sort of dispassionately saying, if you look at the trend lines, it doesn't necessarily show America turning into the Netherlands. And moreover, look at China. You always hear China is going to be the next dominant power. I don't know. I mean, you look at what the problems they've had in the past year in particular that have been exposed with things like, the wheat gluten they exported that killed all the dogs and cats because it was contaminated with pesticides. They have serious environmental problems. The size of their economy will probably eventually surpass the United States, but on a per capita basis, it's nowhere close. Meanwhile, Europe is a long way from being an actual, integrated nation-like political entity. It's much more of a confederation. So I think that people act as though America is the only place in the world right now that is suffering problems. I mean, there's demographic problems in China, Japan, Russia, and Europe that are much more significant than the demographic problems we're having here. I mean, they're not having enough babies to, have a workforce that's going to take care of this rapidly aging population they have.
Much of what you say is true, Joel.
Yes, and so you agree with me.
I would not go that far.
But you said no.
I did say no.
Why did you say no?
I mean, first of all, that's for why you got the blowback, even though you did more or less explicitly, I think, disassociate yourself from the neocons. Right. We live in polarized times, okay? You got to,
right.
It's like, which side of center are you on? Well, you're going to catch it from the other side of the spectrum.
Right. But why did you say no?
I said no.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, here's what I think.
You're a big picture guy.
I'm a big picture. I think in millennia.
Things like the United States is too small of a unit for your huge intellect.
Right. My question
you deal with like Earth, Mars, Venus.
Is the galaxy in decline? Is my question.
Exactly.
Is the galaxy?
I think Andromeda is going to be bigger.
I think it's
in 50 years.
It's headed for heat death, I think.
Sorry, I kicked your camera. I hope that's okay.
That's fine. But no. Here's the thing. Look. You said China on a per capita basis. Well, fine. But if you're talking about who's going to have the most aircraft carriers, per capita doesn't matter, okay? Military power tends to be, in the long run, very closely associated with economic power.
That's what you just said. I hope you don't mind me interjecting. Are you saying that per capita income has nothing to do with military power? That you could have, in China, for example, let's say they have the equivalent of, right now we have, I think, per capita income in the United States of about $44,000. And in China, if you do the purchasing power equivalent, I believe it's, $7,000-8,000, right?
The point I'm making...
Okay, but the thing is, if you don't have very much money per capita, you don't have money for aircraft carriers.
Well, up to a certain point, maybe the taxation you need is difficult, but it depends so much on what the people are willing to endure. I mean, the broad point is, look, if China has 3 times, looking into the future, if China has 3 times our GDP and 5 times our population, they can probably get more aircraft carriers out there more comfortably than we can. And I would say, by the way, that even now, you make the point that we have, however many Nimitz-class aircraft carriers, nobody else has any. We have well, fine. Meanwhile, today the dollar reached a new low relative to the euro. That's not unrelated to our budget deficit, and which the size of our military is partly a reflection of the fact that we're spending well beyond our current means, and on the military and many other things. And if you look at the financial...
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, a financial meltdown is not beyond the pale. And one thing that could have been is the massive government deficit, spending deficit. Yes?
I should point out that just a few months ago, I did a big piece in the style section about the fiscal disaster that's looming down the road and how we can't possibly make good on the promises we've made to future generations in terms of Social Security and Medicare, and that we essentially keep lying to ourselves about the fiscal realities. I mean, all that sort of David Walker at the GAO, who's been going around saying we have $70 trillion in unfunded mandates and things like that. I did an article about that. I do take that seriously. That's got to be fixed. Maybe your analysis of what's going on with the dollar is correct. I will note that when we put out a 30-year Treasury note to try to borrow money, that the Chinese are snapping them up. I think that the world bets on America. I think they think that that's a really good investment.
They are snapping them up, but these things, the credibility of a currency can pivot suddenly and change, and it's like nobody knows where the slippery slope begins, but it's hard to believe we're that far from it. I mean, the other thing is,
now, have you written about this? I mean, you actually have analyzed the future of our economic, system here?
No, probably not. I don't know. But why? Does that make you doubt me? Just because
I just want to know. I guess I'm just wondering if you've actually
done the hard
You're a
repertorial
journalist.
work.
I mean, have you reported on this?
Yeah.
I mean, do you?
No, I have a non-repertorial methodology.
Okay.
It's called say whatever
You
comes to
heard
your
this
mind.
on TV, didn't you?
What?
You heard it, like Lou Dobbs said this one night or something, right? And that's where you got this?
That's where I get most of my information.
good.
But, you
All
know,
right.
there's one other thing. If China has, if like China and India, you know, as time goes out, 50, 60, 70 years, do not have much bigger GDPs than America, then I would be concerned. Because that would mean, given their potential and their
Right.
populations, that would mean somewhere on the path to the modernity that would make them, you know, responsible global citizens,
Correct.
they have suffered, okay? We want them to develop
Right.
economically. That's the
Exactly.
most likely path to them becoming
Well,
responsible
absolutely,
democracies
yes.
and so
Right.
on. So,
Right.
I hope. I mean, I literally
But can I
kind
put
of
something
hope.
out? The metric of GDP,
Yeah.
you know, sort of collective output is not the only measure of what we'd call geopolitical power. I mean, it's also just sort of your ability to project force militarily, your ability to sort of, you know, set the overall terms of diplomacy. I think that it's, you know, I mean, I don't think it's just a question of who has the biggest economy.
Well,
But I agree with you. We don't want them to remain as poor as they are, and the future of the world has to become more multipolar than it is right now. It's kind of crazy to have this one superpower that has 37 or 38% of the entire GDP of the world is in the United States. California would be the 7th largest economy in the world.
It's not
So
healthy. And you know, the other
that's not
bad
a good
thing it
idea.
does, it makes us the whipping boy for everyone who has a grievance about
Right.
globalization.
Yeah, everyone hates us.
No, right, because we're the rich kids on the block. I never
No.
would have wanted to be the rich kid on the block, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
see that you just, you know, you got to spend too much time being nice to people so they don't hate you.
Right.
And I'm serious about that too. It's a burden. And if you look at the current security environment, what are the threats to a nation's security and the role that terrorism plays and the way that grievance feeds into terrorism? Do you especially want to be thought of as the utterly dominant economic power that is responsible for globalization and all of the cultural emanations of globalization? Hell, give it to China. I give them the mantle. And you know, we seem to be moving into an era where I think if we play our cards right in terms of molding in international norms and institutions, we can create an era where relative military might is far from crucial in determining a nation's actual well-being and even its actual influence on the stage. So
Well, yes.
it's like prepare for the not quite inevitable day when we are no longer king of the hill, but the day we should all hope for. When the rest of human potential on the planet has flourished and all the good things resulting from that result from it. I mean,
Okay, so that would be that. I think that's a kind of a best case scenario. But would you not? I mean, do you think America is in that future going to look like a country that has declined, a country that has, you know, sort of slowly disintegrated or lost its influence? I mean, in a sense, you know, who cares how many aircraft carriers we have? The question is, would you want to live here in 50 years?
that is the question. And one thing that I think will be the path to ruin is following the guidance of exactly the aforementioned neocons who want us to not only remain preeminent, but you use that preeminence to go around beating up on the world until they adopt exactly the values that the neocons want them to adopt. And that is one sure path to ruin. It's not the only thing that could make this a country not especially comfortable to live in, but it's one of the main ones because that is what will make it a country where terrorism is an everyday peril.
Right.
You know, there are other complicated issues, immigration and so on. But that is my own number one worry.
It's interesting you mentioned immigration. On the right, the fear of you know, the declinists on the right, like Pat Buchanan and others, say that immigration is the great peril for America because it's going to essentially sap ourselves of our national identity. And there's all kinds of books out making that argument. So the piece I wrote, I tried to say that that this declinist mood can be found across the spectrum. But obviously it takes different forms. On the left, there's much more focus on the problems with America's imperial character, and with the Bush administration. On the right, there's concern about immigration and just general softness of the culture. Too many liberals, too much, too many academics, professors, and so on, who are trying to poison the minds of America's youth. So both sides have a certain level of declinism about them, and I thought that my piece was a sober assessment that also was, it was intended as somewhat playfully as, right now when things look so badly, I say, think like a bookie, go with the Vegas odds, take America in the points.
Well, and I think what that literally means is just that to say you would take the odds, all that means is that you think that America is being at least somewhat underrated. Because a smart better
I think America's being a little underrated.
Right.
I guess that,
right.
But I'm saying that in the context of, of we just saw the testimony on the Hill. I don't know if you want to transition to that. Where 6 more months, 9 more months. How long is this thing going to go on in Iraq? And it's hard not to be dispirited about that situation, which has been so tragic, and so it's been such a fiasco, really a set of cascading fiascos. I think that the war has, it's so dominated the national discussion, and it's sucked all the oxygen out of the room. I think it's understandable that a lot of people would see our country as being on the road to ruin.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, the Iraq War has moved us, onto a, I think, particularly slippery slope, that could lead to much graver...
What do you think we should do?
I'm not, I was opposed to the war very, very clearly.
You're on the record at the beginning, okay.
Totally. In various publications. But I'm not among those who is, sure that the best thing to do is, withdraw tomorrow. I think it's at this point, it's sufficiently complicated that anybody who says they're sure of anything is overestimating their prophetic powers. But
I wrote a piece about that too. It's funny you mention it. Did you? You probably didn't see it. My piece on doubt.
I didn't.
Give doubt a chance.
Tell me about your piece, because we were only going to plug 3 of your pieces. Let's make it 4, Joel.
What are you working on?
Well, that's the thing. I don't have any to plug. Okay, so go ahead.
What do you do? Are you still riding your bike a lot?
Bring on the self-promotion, Joel. Go ahead.
Well, can we link to it?
We can link to anything you mention.
Can we drive traffic to it? Because it's all about the page views.
We're going to talk about that later, because that's another piece you wrote. But first, doubt. Well,
I just think that the whole idea of sort of critical thinking, and figuring out how to analyze disparate claims, that as a country we're not terribly good at it, and that people need to understand that uncertainty is not weakness, that doubt is not a character failure. And in politics today, so often, if you don't get up there and say, this is exactly how it is, you'll be considered to be an equivocator. And the worst thing you can do is ever change your mind on something.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh, he was for it before he was against it. That's the worst thing you can say about someone. And in fact, that's not really a good way to approach problems. You should use doubt as a kind of a weapon, a tool for teasing out a better answer, a better explanation for any particular situation. As you know, you're Mr. Doubt.
Well, an intolerance of doubt helped get us into the Iraq War, if you remember the pre-war atmosphere.
Yeah, if you had any doubt at all, you were unpatriotic.
Right, you were a
traitor.
Right. No, that's I'm with you. The world needs more doubt and more professions of uncertainty, which
Yeah, but I do think that the for some reason our national conversation has been pushed towards absolutism on either side so often, and it's with the people who have the biggest audiences. I mean, you never hear someone like Rush Limbaugh ever express, second guess himself.
No.
He just would never do it.
And it happens on both the right and the left.
Yeah,
the Netflix blogs on the left are not known for their professions of doubt, and then neither are the people on the right, as you note.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely... I mean, I think technology was kind of polarizing our discourse to some extent, even before the Iraq War, but that's really exacerbated it. But you and I are here to bring America back to the middle, right? You and I
there
and
is
David
no
Broder.
middle. And Broder,
Do you know David Broder? Does he hang out at the Washington Post?
Of course he does.
And so you know him?
He works here.
You know him?
Yes, I know him fairly well, and he's been a really wonderful colleague over the years.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the nicest guys in the business. He's not very popular on the internet, I've noticed.
Well, he is widely ridiculed for insisting on bipartisan solutions to things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But he seems like a nice guy, and he once like a decade and a half ago plugged a piece I wrote for Time magazine. So
he did you a favor once, so he's a friend.
That's my definition of a friend.
Yes,
Somebody who's plugged a piece I wrote. So wait, where are we here? Well, is that the end of doubt? Have we ended doubt? That would be a good book for you to write, The End of Doubt.
The End of Doubt.
Yeah.
Give doubt a chance. Should we talk about? Can I tell you about what I've been doing the last couple weekends?
That would be fascinating, Joel.
Going to open houses.
Ooh.
Like real estate. Looking at houses that
they
are
have
for
a
sale.
bowl of cookies on the table?
Actually, I was disappointed there wasn't much in the way of freebies. What do you call that? What do you call when you get the free stuff? There's a word for it.
Bribe?
Brian, do you know? What is the free stuff? There's a word that like when you go to the Academy Awards. There's like a goodie bag, but there's a word for it.
It's going to come to me.
Yeah, it's going to come to me too.
This is on the tip of my tongue.
Later on, we'll find it and we'll link to it. But
it starts with FL, doesn't it? Oh no, wait, we're sounding like old people. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay,
Let's move on.
Yeah. I wrote a piece about old people too. We can talk.
We're going to get to that.
We're going to get to that.
We live long
Frisky
enough.
geezers.
Yeah.
So I went to all these houses that are and I have not been in the housing market for 16 years or so, a long time, and but I'm doing a little story about open houses, real estate, that kind of thing. And the first thing is, have you been out house shopping lately? You bought a house, didn't you?
I bought a house in 2002.
Okay.
And for the next 9 weeks, I paid attention to the real estate market to try to reassure myself that I had gotten a good deal, and I haven't looked since, and I'm not looking back.
Well, here's the thing. It's unbelievable how much money a house costs now.
I'm glad to hear that.
Even when it's a complete piece of crap. Okay?
That is especially good news for me, Joel. That is music to my ears.
No, and the thing is, here's the rule. If you go into a house and it costs, let's say, and this is, in certain, I'm thinking about in Northwest D.C., Bethesda, whatever. Let's say it costs $900,000. Now, the first thing you think is, well, how can a house, who can afford $900,000? But here's the bad thing. For $900,000, something's going to be wrong. Okay, for $900,000, okay, there's going to be something missing, like there'll be no kitchen.
Yeah.
Or there'll be no yard.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't want a yard. I've seen houses. I saw a house the other day, $4.5 million, no yard at all.
This is one you were thinking about buying?
This is one I was thinking about egging. Like trick or treat.
I'm with you.
This house had no yard at all, because it's for people who don't want a yard. Because as the real estate agent explained, if you have a yard, you have bugs, weeds, you have to take care of it.
I think the bugs sometimes come anyway,
Yeah.
but I know what you mean.
So, it's $4.5 million, huge house. I think it was 8,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, how can someone today buy a house that big?
I don't know what people do inside the McMansions. They're getting bigger and bigger. I honestly don't know what the floor
around
plans
like
are
a baby in a tin can.
Yeah.
But no, it had an elevator. It went on forever. It was just truly remarkable. And there were two of these. It used to be like a little cottage there, built, a little Sears kit house or a little bungalow built back in the 20s or 30s. They tore that down, put up two mega mansions side by side. Between them was 15,000 square feet of house. And I don't know. Shouldn't it be illegal to live in a house that big?
You're preaching to the choir, man.
I'm thinking the next big thing, the next hot thing in this country is class warfare. And it's not going to be the have-nots against the haves. It's going to be the haves against the have-yachts. You know, the people who, the absurdly, disgustingly rich. I mean, the people, and this really is bothering me. You know, I read saw in the paper the other day, some guy at Goldman Sachs made $77 million and sued because it wasn't enough. He felt like he actually made more. I mean, it's getting crazy. I mean, there is so much money on the very high end of this society.
Yeah.
And you can say, "Oh, well, what's Joel? Who cares? You know, why do you care if there's people are out there rich with their fancy palatial homes and all that?" And the answer is there is essentially an affluence tax that the rest of us pay. I mean, you're kind of rich.
Of course,
right,
you realize.
Are you rich from all those books? you must be.
Joel, you're asking me this at a very interesting time. I mean.
Do you need to borrow some money?
Joel, you laugh, but
I can loan you some money. I got some money.
We will talk. We will talk. Let's just change that subject.
The point is, there's an affluence tax. Let me explain this idea, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say, hypothetically, I want to redo my kitchen. I have to compete against all those rich people for a contractor. So instead of it costing $20,000, it'll cost $50 or $75 or $100 just to get some new cabinets in and all that kind of jazz. And so I'm paying a tax. It's a secret hidden tax just because all these rich people out there have so much money. And forget about schools. Forget about private schools.
Yeah.
My kids I have one in private and two in public school. I couldn't afford three private schools.
You know, Joel, even as you speak, I can just feel that sympathy for you welling up in Darfur. That's a crass way to put it. But I was going to make a serious point, which is that everything you've said about these super rich people, can you believe they're suing? You've got $77 million. They're suing. To certain people around the world, and even in America, it looks ridiculous when you or I holds out for $5,000 more in salary. Right? It's like we're already more than an order of magnitude above them, and So I would just make that. I would just make that point. Now,
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Listen to me, okay? There is a whole new socioeconomic group called the affluent poor.
That's you.
Yes.
Well, if that's you, I am the actual poor. Okay. So I would just like a.
Do you think people will ridicule us over this?
You more than me, I think.
What?
I hope they should. You deserve it. I think. Sorry,
but you're having some doubt about that.
Doubt is our friend. We should indulge our doubt, as you know. But no, I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain. If I had your income level, which is to say, if I had a higher one than mine.
If you had a job, is what you're saying.
I am. You're right.
Do you have a job?
I have a conglomeration of theoretically income-producing activities, none of which lately have been especially productive.
No is the answer, in other words.
Listen, could we move on? What were we going to talk about? Because, I don't want charity. I don't want pity.
But I tell you about the housing market. I did see a really interesting house that I would love to live in. It was this stone kind of castle-like thing with this beautiful tile roof, endless rooms, a huge library with a vaulted ceiling,
Disneyland
all
kind
kinds
of
of different. It was absolutely magnificent, but it was a little bit kind of somber. It was a little bit.
That wouldn't be right for you because you're mirthful.
I have a sunny disposition.
Yeah.
But here's the one weird thing about that house. It was Nixon's house.
Really?
Richard Nixon lived in that house. It's for sale right now. One of your viewers, or both of them potentially, could buy that house.
For how much?
$4.5 million.
Huh. I think some of our viewers couldn't actually. Don't tell those potential advertisers out there, but I think a few of our viewers couldn't.
But the thing is, though, I mean, it's got this sort of strange Nixon vibe there. It could just be in my head.
Why? Did you get kind of paranoid when you were in there? Did you think people were out to get you and that you should wiretap them?
Well, it's just all the tape recorders and the little cameras and everything everywhere. It gave you kind of...
That will do it.
Made me jittery.
That will do it. So Joel, how far down our checklist of topics have we moved?
We're eking along. We're crawling along. Our inability to sustain this conversation could be a sign of increasing age.
I think compared to our last one, this is a model of coherence. And
yeah, well, I mean, if we had just simply passed out on camera, it would be incoherence compared to last time. But did you catch my little segue there? Our inability to stay on track may be a sign of increasing age.
Oh, so we're gonna revisit personal declinism.
No, geezers.
Geezers, that's what I mean by personal declinism.
Yes.
Age.
Geezerdom.
Age.
Yes. Because I just wrote a piece.
I saw the piece, another good piece.
A couple days
now,
ago.
actually, I have a substantive critique of this piece, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the piece is about how it's like, 70 is the new 60, or the 80 is the new 50, or whatever. All these people who are at an age that used to signify retirement are like running the world, Rupert Murdoch, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I think I read the whole damn thing and did not come across what seems to me the obvious explanation, which I've alluded to earlier in this dialogue. You know what that is?
No.
Testosterone patches.
Do you think they're all taking
Totally.
You think the Rupert Murdoch has a testosterone
you don't
patch?
have a testosterone level with us. You don't have a testosterone patch on right now?
I'm trying to get mine down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think... well, never mind.
Okay. So look. Seriously, do people like Rupert Murdoch and Sumner Redstone, or is it Redstone Sumner? They don't.
You were right the first time, I think.
Do they all have testosterone patches?
They're probably beyond that. It's like the kinds of doctors I have to go to with my health care plan would give a testosterone patch. These guys are like, I don't know, time release, whatever. They're so far beyond us. That's the thing.
I mean, I think it's interesting that there was that survey recently that showed how many older people are having sex, and it was higher than I think most people thought it would be.
Yeah, I remember that survey.
It was on the front page a few weeks back, and it's something like I don't have the piece in front of me, the exact numbers, but it's something like over 75, from 75 to 85. More than a quarter of Americans are still regularly having sex. Sex is still a part of their life, and it's higher for men than it is for women. But that partly maybe because there's so many widows. I mean, women live longer than men. A lot of once you get in those higher age groups, there just aren't that many men to go around. So maybe a lack of opportunity for older women. And meanwhile, what's really interesting, what people I think are going to be buzzing about around here and other places, is this show on TV called Tell Me You Love Me, which it's an incredibly explicit show about married couples having sex, and one of the couples is an older couple. I don't know their exact age, but I believe that Jane Alexander, who plays the woman, I think she's 67. I could be wrong about that, but it shows her having sex with her husband, and I think that's groundbreaking. So that's where we're going as a society, is sort of
more explicit depictions of sex by people of retirement age.
Exactly, and maybe it's a boomer thing.
That's good, because I've been wondering how I am going to be making money. 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Well, you need a job.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, sell explicit depictions of me having sex 15 or 20 years from now.
Yeah. You should. You should. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. I would. You might want to question that premise.
We'll get some viewer feedback on that, maybe.
Yeah.
But this again. I think first of all, you have neglected a relevant pharmaceutical fact when talking about
the Viagra.
You're getting there, yeah.
Well, I mean, if people who have more sex apparently are healthier. There's some correlation there, and I don't know. What. If that's a chicken and egg thing. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Does the Viagra make you healthier?
Does being healthy make you have more sex?
Whatever.
Or does having sex make you healthier?
Now, here's a question that I think all too rarely gets asked. I've never heard this addressed, and it's a slightly delicate question, and I have to think about how I'm going to put it. But it's
just blurt it out. Just blurt it out.
Viagra Cialis related question, and it's this. Well, first of all, here's the warm-up to it, is that I think if that's the show that I saw reviewed, the person noted that the camera did not exactly dwell on the details of the older people having sex.
That's true.
That's true. Okay.
Younger people, much more explicit. Okay. Older people,
there's
kind of not. But
do you know what the reason for that is, Joel?
No.
All of us would rather see a younger person with their clothes off than an older person with their clothes
But,
off. Right?
But, you know, maybe that's the next taboo that has to be broken.
You are so naive. No, I don't want to say naive, but let me just beg to differ there. And anyway,
is this going to be one of your sociobiological explanations? You know,
I prefer the term.
Are you going to use the word neoteny?
I prefer the term evolutionary psychology to sociobiology.
Right.
But let me skip.
Wait, is there any difference between the two terms, or is one of them is sort of a
There actually are
tainted
subtle
word?
differences, and it correlates with actual political ideology to some extent,
Okay.
and it does imply somewhat a different view of human nature. Actually,
okay, but clearly we are sort of conditioned to want to look at, you know.
Well, when you say we are
conditioned
to, you're kind of assuming a lot, like that the way I would approach these things is totally wrong, like none of this is in our genes, right? But anyway, I mean,
actually, no.
There was reason to think that some of it is just
in our genes. Yeah, I'm all about the biology, Bob.
Yeah, good, because you've written about it. I know you've called me.
I quoted you.
You quoted me.
I plugged you. That's why we're friends.
That is why we are associates. You're right.
That's why, like Broder, I am your friend.
That's why
I once said something nice in print about something you wrote.
Right.
That's called friendship in Washington, D.C. and New York and in intervening localities.
That is why you're my good associate. You're right.
Exactly.
Now listen.
We're very good associates.
Now, but here's the taboo breaking.
We actually have gone bike riding together, and that's not a euphemism for something that you want to sell on the internet 15 years from now.
But you know, it's never just been
cycled together.
It's never just. We have never done it without adult supervision. I think, right? It's never been just us two.
Is that true?
I think so.
That's true. We always had the adult along.
Yeah, our common mentor.
Yes. You want to mention?
Should we utter the name?
He who may not be named. No, it'll be name dropping. Forget about it.
You think so?
What do you think?
Should we go offline with this? We actually mentioned him last time.
Okay. Well, he's a great man.
He's a great man. But it is like the word Yahweh, though. It should not be spoken.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, I got to go finish my book. Something he reminds me of regularly. Okay, here's my taboo breaking...
Are you still writing books?
Shut up. Here's my taboo breaking point. Okay? The question that never gets asked. If you ask, I mean, what exactly is Viagra or Cialis addressing? If you ask, why does an aging man have less sex than this man used to? I can imagine two questions. One is, well, his partner is an aging woman, and let's face it, as you and I just agreed, for the average person, an older person is not quite as enticing as a younger person. That's one possible explanation. Another possible explanation is the plumbing's just not working. Now, my question about these drugs, I've never heard this addressed. That's why this is taboo breaking. My question is, how do these drugs work? Do they make you relatively indifferent to
I think it's like
the
helium.
age?
It's helium or something.
I don't think you're addressing my question. It's a serious question. Is it the case that, I've gone as far as I need to in breaking this taboo. If you're not going to play ball with me...
Okay, wait, it doesn't. Those drugs do not address libido. If that's your question, okay? They don't address the want to, okay? It's just a plumbing issue. I think they address
They only address the plumbing issue.
They just, So
that's as far as I want to go.
I think in the future, my guess is in the future, if you want to make an investment of some of your dwindling resources, after I loan you some money, take and invest some money in whoever's doing research on helping 70-year-olds want to have, that kind of behavior. Because think about all the boomers coming up. I mean, it's a growth market, obviously. And I think that's what they're going to want to do. They're going to want to jump out of airplanes, and they're not going to play shuffleboard. They're going to play a totally different kind of game. And
I want a wife who thinks my wrinkles are sexy, and I want the drug that will make her think that.
You don't have wrinkles, though. You're weirdly unwrinkled.
Are you serious? Have you looked at me lately?
No, I don't really look at you.
Oh, that would explain that particular conjecture. Okay, enough.
Well, so are we done now? Are you going to go write your book?
No, you have another. We were going to plug another of your pieces. The clicks thing.
Clicks. Well, this is actually
it's another one where you're sounding like you're on the other side of middle age, by the way, because you're lamenting the glories of the bygone era of dead tree newspapers, and you're very skittish about this new online world.
Well, I mean, I have a blog. I've had one for 3 years, so but
with
yeah,
some ambivalence, obviously, yes.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the problem is that when you write a book, you're always checking.
It's been so long I've forgotten, but go ahead.
This may have been invented after your last book. This thing called Amazon.com. It's an online thing where you can check your Amazon rating. And so when you write a book, you always check your Amazon rating. You're always sort of clicking to see, like, how am I doing now? And then, like, 15 minutes later, you check again to see if your number has gotten better.
I literally swore off of that after my last book, which was the first book in which that was possible. It was like I just said no more, went the next year without looking. But go ahead.
But for a while, you did it, right?
Right. It was like breaking a drug habit. Yeah,
yeah,
was.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's worse than any of those other things. So now what happens is I just don't think this has been adequately addressed by the journalism community. In the old days, when we wrote a story for the newspaper, you knew if it was well read because anecdotally someone across the newsroom said, "Hey, good story," or someone on the street said, "Hey, I saw your story," or you got a letter in the mail. Now you can find out exactly how many page views a story has. Now it's a little squishy because there's different ways of presenting a story online such that it can elevate the apparent number of page views even though you don't really have that many readers.
Right.
And so as a metric, it's quite imperfect. But
also, can I just add?
But I'm just saying, it's a real change when stories, the whole ranking of most emailed. And the Geezer story was emailed all over the place, and you find yourself thinking, well, maybe I should write the kind of stories that get the most page views. Now, the people around here will say, well, no, we're not going to worry too much about individual stories and try to maximize my page views. But there's no question that certain things get more attention. Celebrity, obviously anything with, sex or sleaze in it, and opinion in general. Opinion, and strong opinions, real sort of, opinions that have no doubts about them, tend to, drive traffic. Even when sometimes that traffic is driven by the people clicking on it find the piece to be offensive or stupid or wrong-headed, and so I guess my concern is that over time there's going to be a kind of a drift towards, for want of a better word, you could say sensationalism, because the internet has this metric where you can see what people are actually clicking on.
Yes, this is a well-expressed concern in your piece called "I Really Need You to Read This Article." Okay, this was not a blog item. This was an actual piece. And, it's true. I mean, first of all, here's some things I agree with. But before I get to the
before you tear it down,
before I rip it to shreds, first of all, you're right that the metrics all suffer from grave problems. One is, like when I wrote a column for Slate, I would go to the Slate retreats, and they would show you the numbers, like whose articles were what. And in terms of page views, it was always totally a reflection of A, what kind of play they got, how prominent the headline was, and B, what the headline said. It was not a sign that anyone actually read the piece. And that's why I think most emailed has certain virtues. That's a sign that somebody got to the bottom of the piece, liked it enough to send it. However, I think most emailed, which is what the New York Times relies on, may have its own shortcoming, which is I suspect there's a demographic bias. Like the kinds of people, the email this article thing is, to some of us, seems a little cumbersome. I would rather just paste the URL into an email I personally send, right?
Right.
So I doubt that correlates perfectly with the number of people who actually felt motivated to email it, but it's better. Anyway, I mean, that is, so the metrics themselves are bad.
Right.
The root of my begging to differ with your piece is actually not very well founded, because you actually do this to be sure. When you say,
are you backtracking before you've even said your objection?
I'm just trying to lull you into an ill-advised sense of complacency. It's
and
what,
then nail me.
What
and then just,
Muhammad Ali used to call the rope-a-dope strategy.
Rope-a-dope me.
Yeah. you do acknowledge that, okay, even in the old days, we got some feedback. We would have these focus groups. I would stress a little more that there was, in the old days, a lot of feedback. I mean, I worked at a small newspaper like, more than 20 years ago. I worked at the New Republic in the late 80s, early 90s. There was ongoing real-time feedback. It's just that it was what sociologists call elite opinion. In other words, the publisher goes to a dinner party. Right. What do they hear about which piece caused the buzz? Right. Or you talk to your colleagues. You know, it was not the average reader. And in fact...
And that still goes on. I mean, I think to some degree... I think that's what I say about this. I think to some degree, what gets talked about at cocktail parties inside the Beltway among the media elite... filters back into the newsroom a little bit.
It still matters, but it used to be that really that was the only real-time feedback. There were letters to the editor, but A, they rarely resulted in a really pronounced verdict one way or the other, and B, there was a qualitative dimension to those. In other words, you would pay more attention to the really smart, articulate person. Right. And in other words, even those were biased toward what sociologists would call elite opinion. Now... in the old days, the only kind of non-demographically biased feedback you got was very long-term. It was circulation. It did not. Mm-hmm. It did not apply to individual pieces. You would never say about an individual piece, the people as a whole didn't like it. At least you'd never be right because you'd never have a basis for saying that. Mm-hmm. It was the grossest kind of feedback mechanism was this long-term circulation thing. Of course, editors and owners tried to cater to that. They asked themselves, what does it take to keep people liking it? And so there was that kind of oblique feedback. But what is new is the daily tyranny of what is perceived as, the mass opinion verdict on your piece. Although, as we've said, all the metrics actually have serious shortcomings. But they are the metrics.
But here's the thing. You can tell exactly, well, not exactly, but you can tell how many people are reading which article. And eventually the metrics will get better. Yeah. And the question is, why should you pay someone to cover, let's just say hypothetically, to cover Africa, write Africa news or Latin America, if the number of page views on those stories is low compared to the number of page views for the person who covers celebrities in Hollywood? I mean, that's the concern. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but we're in a shrinking industry. We're in an industry that's under a lot of stress and pressure. And so, anyway, I guess
especially when, as you note, you talk about this, like the leading provider of so-called horizontal links, links that come from somewhere other than your organization, is Matt Drudge.
Matt Drudge.
Now, if that is, it used to be, you would say, well, even if the celebrity stuff is maybe the main reason, the main attention getter, there's a reason you want this serious foreign relations stuff because that does X, Y, and Z for your demographic. In other words, you're thinking, what kind of people are you getting to buy the whole periodical? But increasingly, if what's in the rest of your so-called periodical is irrelevant to how many people and what kinds of people read the celebrity stuff, if they're all coming from Drudge anyway, this is the much discussed disaggregation of content, and you work for a company that I assume is paying a lot of attention to this question.
Yes. So that's why I'm going to start writing about Brittany.
Yeah.
But the flip side is, if you look at the things on the web that have done really well here at the Post recently, the Dick Cheney series that Bart Gellman and Joe Becker did got tremendous amount of traffic. There's an argument that original reporting, new, actual, digging, investigating things, that's still going to be, even in the web world, even in the page, view metric world, that's still going to be a very successful venture for newspapers. Yeah. So that's an argument. I don't know how it's going to all play out, but I was, in my piece, I was just trying to sort of discuss this, and in my case, the best thing that's ever happened to me as a blogger is I lost the password that would let me see how many page views each item had.
That's another unhealthy.
Today, I posted something on my blog, and it didn't say a whole lot, but I I don't know day to day how many readers I have. I have no idea. But there are people at .com who know, and they will not give the password to me. So I'm in the dark as to whether or not, one day versus another day, how many readers I have.
Yeah.
I know I'd like it to be more, but if you get obsessed with it, the next thing you know, you're just trying to drive traffic all the time.
It's an unhealthy obsession, and that's why I have insisted at keeping our traffic on Blogging Heads TV as close to zero as possible.
Exactly.
So we will not be corrupted. And
no, I mean, actually, the moment you have any audience at all, it's a kind of impurity.
Right.
I mean, I prefer my work unread.
Yeah, no, I took a vow of chastity before I started this website, and I have not violated it.
Right.
There's no one has ever looked at it.
No one's ever looked at it.
I was kind of wondering if you could change that and link to it after we do link to this particular episode, because you have this legion of ardent fans.
Yeah, they're very ardent. I mean, with each other in particular, they meet in bars.
Group sex.
They meet in bars.
Yeah.
We'll definitely link to you, and then you'll link back to me, and then we'll just
be linking back together.
It used to be people used to say, "Let's do lunch," or give me a call.
Yeah.
Now they say, "I'll link to you."
Yeah.
I'll link to you. It's the new little
social. The new thing. Let's do link.
Social thing.
Let's do link.
Let's do links.
Now it seems. Oh, I know what I was going to say before we.
Can I ask a question? I feel like we've been talking for 2 hours,
and yet
How
it's only
long?
1 hour.
Okay, here's the bulletin. I have a job, okay?
Do you? For now you do. We've just discussed the reasons you probably won't in a year, but anyway, go ahead.
I have to go write about the houses, the Nixon house and all that stuff. Okay?
Yeah, that was great stuff.
I have another piece I'm writing about sports.
We were going to discuss. Let me quickly, one more thing on this subject is what could conceivably change this a little. What would be interesting is if advertisers had demographic data at the disaggregated level. In other words, when the Washington Post goes to advertisers, they say, well, our average viewer at WashingtonPost.com is whatever, income of this, education level of this. I'm guessing they don't say. Now, the people who read the Britney Spears have this, and it would be interesting if advertisers, in deciding whether, what to... Because, the famous apocryphal story back in the days of aggregation, where that Rupert Murdoch went to the department store owners of New York and asked, why don't you advertise in the New York Post? And they said, some guy said, you don't understand, Rupert, your readers are our shoplifters. And it's kind of like, with all due respect to people who read the Drudge Report, there's a little analogy going on, and I'm wondering if advertisers knew what? Never mind.
You said that. I'm disassociating myself from that comment, given that he has something like 9 million readers.
Yeah, but you know what?
I'm sure only about 6 or 7 million of those people actually are active shoplifters. So I'm totally disassociating myself from that comment. Go ahead.
He's never sent any traffic to us anyway.
Right. He hasn't?
No.
Maybe, well,
that's because we don't do trash, man. We don't do trash.
But I would.
I would do trash.
I would. Invite me back.
Well, that wouldn't be doing trash, Joel. Come on. I feel like I failed to get your serotonin level up.
The serotonin is way down, but the dopamine is up. I don't know.
That's what really feels good, if you ask me.
But the thing is, I would sink to any depth if you asked me to.
So would I.
How much am I getting paid for this?
Listen, I got to run, Joel.
You got a job interview?
Yeah, with a candidate who has a more realistic idea of our compensation levels than you seem to. What did you want to say anything about sports before we? Because we could do,
Well, I'll just say, I'm trying to get my kids to stop doing so much homework and start watching sports on TV, and it's hard.
Me too. It is hard.
I have daughters. I have daughters.
How old are your daughters?
I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, so the point is they won't watch. They wanted. It's like I'm doing my math. I'm writing a paper for my AP literature class. And it's like, but it's like the U.S. Open. The tennis. It was great. Well, the other morning, I actually tried to get them to get up early to watch the World Cup, Women's World Cup soccer, which was phenomenal. I don't know if you saw it. the U.S. against North Korea. Oh my God, it was nuclear. It was incredible.
And
I mean, it was
good versus evil too, which is always
it was
a
good
bonus.
versus evil, and but evil almost won. And evil was great out there. I would say that the North Koreans played brilliantly, and they were just, they got a tie 2-2. In fact, they were ahead 2-1, and we got the equalizer. It was very exciting. It was great soccer, but it was on at between 5 and 7 in the morning, which is obviously a problem. But I'm doing a piece. I'm trying to sort out why don't women watch more sports on TV, or why don't more women watch sports on TV? So that's the piece.
I don't know. I'm not convinced that it's all environmental conditioning, as you say, but I don't know, because it's not.
Wait, what do you?
It's like in some areas, evolutionary psychology has these kind of clear-cut theoretical reasons to expect a gender difference.
Wait, is this like
This is not one of them.
like the guys have to watch the wildebeest go by and they have to throw the spear, but the women are gathering nuts or something? Is that what you're talking? You don't tell me that's what you think.
I was actually about to say the opposite, which is that in this particular realm, there's no clear-cut theoretical expectation as there is in certain realms of sexual behavior, say, or sexual psychology, in terms of nature of jealousy, nature of lust, what things are arousing, and so on. You get some clear-cut.
Actually, you can help me with this. I'll actually write down your quote because you're the author of all kinds of books on this stuff. Is it because, particularly with team sports like football, they're on a helmet, whatever. You can't see their faces, and moreover, football's not really about relationships between people. It's about sort of acquisition of territory and numerical point scoring and so on. Is there something about the female brain? I mean, that they think that's stupid, that they don't care about that. I mean, I realize there are a lot of women who actually watch football. I'm trying to say this is universal, but. I've never been able to get my girls interested in mindless sports. Why is that?
They're too smart for it?
But is there something about their brain? I mean, do that sort of Steven Pinker thing you do.
I think you should call Steven Pinker.
Okay. All right, so are we in hour 3 now of this?
Yeah, but that's not the record. If you want to make Guinness, we got to do another 25 minutes, man.
Okay, well, I've enjoyed this.
So have I. And I mean that.
So I'll see you again in about another year and a half.
Well, I'll tell you, we will await the viewer feedback, and it could be as early as 6 months if it exceeds my expectations.
This time, don't send me all the emails about people who hated me, okay?
You know what? Come to think
fragile.
of it, I think maybe last time the feedback was only in email mode. That was before we had a comment section, maybe. So this
There's
time,
a comment section?
Yeah, you didn't know we have one? Oh, I'm sorry. This could be bad for your serotonin level.
Ooh, and the dopamine.
Both.
And the testosterone.
Yeah.
Ooh, all the chemicals are just going to...
Yeah, you need 3 kinds of patches, maybe.
Boy, I'm going to just be covered with patches. Oh, my God.
You remember that song? Patches, I'm Depending on You, Son.
No.
You don't?
That was back from in your day.
By Clarence somebody? Oh, yeah, like you're just decades younger than me.
You're a lot older than I am.
Yeah, I know. Well, never mind. Was I going to say? I was going to say yes. We will have you back, and thanks for.
Well, it's been fun.
And do remember. Oh no. Here's what I was going to say. If you want the comment section to speak favorably of us, link from your blog. Send your fans.
Yes.
Give them explicit instructions
I can
to
game
leave
the system.
favorable comments.
Yes, I can game the system.
In fact, you can include a link to this part of the dialogue, and I will be giving them the instruction to leave comments that are favorable toward you.
I can skew the results.
Yeah.
I can bias the reaction.
Yeah.
I'm liking it.
It's all about clicks, man.
Absolutely, buddy.
Okay.
I'll link to you.
So we'll see you at some point in the real world and online.
Yeah, see you out there on the bike path soon.
Precisely. Thanks.
All right, buddy.
Okay, see you around.
All right.